Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday evening session. So let's get started. Now, this week, actually, we're going to get started with something new, and that was Baal HaSulam's Hello, everyone, Writings of the Last Generation. So we're going to start with those. Now, you should have a link sent to you already, and we can get started. Now, the reason we're studying these materials right now is because you know that since the whole pandemic affair started last year, end of last year, but really got international in March. What we've seen in the world is that the world is going into a routine where everybody is the same. All right, so we might be living in different countries, we might have different cultures, languages, beliefs, religions, everything could be different about us. However, though, the states that we're going is pretty much the same. We're all facing lockdowns. Economy is facing the same difficulties. The world is going through the same traumas. It's going the same through the traumas with the pandemic, with natural disasters. And actually, we're all discovering now that we're all part of one nation, really. The whole world is actually becoming more fluid, it's becoming more borderless, and we're beginning to witness, we're really witnessing what's called the last generation, where everybody is actually pretty much the same, going through the same things. And if you go to countries, you'll see that everybody lives like the same. Everybody's living in their mobile phones right now, and we're all going through the same thing. So because we're all going through the same thing, it's really important for us to understand why humanity is facing such conditions. And this is why I want to study The Last Generation by the writings of Baal HaSulam, in order for us to understand what the condition of the world is, what the condition of the last generation is, and what does it actually mean to be the last generation, and what does our generation really have to start doing? So we're going to start studying those, and we'll just start reading as usual with the material. Now, this material is not that long, so we should be able to probably do it in 1 or 2 lessons. If you have questions, as usual, send them through, and we'll try to clarify whatever we can. So the last generation from the writings of Baal HaSulam. The solution. Now remember, Baal HaSulam wrote these about maybe 100 years ago, maybe even more. So we're talking about writings that describe our generation that was written many, many years ago, because Baal HaSulam saw many years ago how the world was going, where it was going to, and what we need to do in order to make sure that this transition that we're going through could be as smooth as possible, and without any wars, or without any problems or sadness or grief that humanity is used to living every time it needs to make some kind of an adjustment. So our history is full of all kinds of horrible things. Every time we need to make a change, every time we need to, rise one level up to something new. So let's discover what he's talking about. The last generation. The solution. Throughout time and throughout the world, wise men have failed to come up with a solution that would be accepted by all. I offer a genuine solution that is both acceptable and unites them all. The new society. The acceptance of the religion of love thy neighbor as thyself, as simple as that. Meaning, the religion is love thy neighbor as thyself. A just distribution of the profits so that each works according to his skills and receives according to his needs. Private property exists, but its owner must not profit from it more than he really needs. Property owners will be under public supervision or under self-trusteeship or through bookkeeping. The unemployed will receive their needs equally with the employed. People who live in communes will receive equally with the workers. Profits will be utilized for building public assets. So Islam is describing here, defining what the principle of the new society is. And we shouldn't be thinking of this as some kind of some kind of socialism or communism or what people tried to do in the past. Because, and I'll tell you why, because the first principle he notes here is to love people as yourself. So in other words, treat other people like you would like to be treated, or treat other people in such a way that you don't harm them. And if that is the main principle of society, then what tends to happen automatically is that we stop abusing others, we stop profiting more than others, we stop trying to be on top of others, but quite to the opposite, we help others. Like in a family. And Islam says, if this is the way we need to get along, because if we don't get along like a family in humanity, then what we have been doing for thousands of years is killing each other. And this is how things go. So Islam says the new society must have a principle where everybody cares about each other. Otherwise, there's no point in being a society, because we've tried to build all kinds of societies that have not worked. We've built, I don't know, socialism, capitalism, fascism, all kinds of things throughout the past. It hasn't worked. And what needs to work is a change in human approach. If we understand that our nature is egoistic, and this egoistic nature is constantly trying to fulfill itself on the expense of others, we're just corrupting society. We're just becoming a society of criminals where every country has thousands of prisons full of people in it because, our society creates criminals. Why? Because we're not educated in understanding that the benefit of society, the future of society, the good of society depends on good relationships between each other. So Islam just writes this in such a way that he's a bit straightforward. And he gives us this term, love thy neighbor as thyself, as if it's some kind of a religious term. But we have to think about it, in lieu of the 21st century. So what does that really mean? Well, it means we have to treat each other in such a way that we're not abusing each other. Everybody in society should be looked after by society. We should care for each other like we're in a family. And if we don't, it creates problems and causes society to roll down a path of chaos. The change of form. Now, remember, we have to look at this article as students of the wisdom of Kabbalah. If you're just listening to this lesson and you haven't watched, the lessons we've had over the years, then obviously this is not really going to resonate with you. So the article is for people who are studying the wisdom of Kabbalah with Bnei Baruch, and we understand that society needs to go through a shift. In fact, we individually have to go through this shift. So individually, all of us who study the wisdom of Kabbalah with Bnei Baruch, we understand that we need to go through some inner change. We understand that a good life depends on a good change that we need to go through, because our life isn't good. If it was good, the world would have been such a bad state. If you think about it, all the wars, hunger, all kinds of, horrible things we're going through in life. So we need to come to some kind of understanding, recognition that in order to change the world, we have to change ourselves. And this is what Baal Salam is trying to tell us here. So this really needs to resonate with people who study the wisdom of Kabbalah with B'nai Baruch and who understand that personal change is necessary for societal change, and societal change is necessary for the better in order for us to have a good life. So the next subtitle is The Change of Form. The will to receive that's imprinted in each creature has a different form to the Creator's. Therefore, the soul departed from him because a change of form in the spiritual is like an axe that cuts in two in the material. Thus, it is clear that what the Creator wants from us is equivalence of form, by which we return and cleave to him, as before we were created. It is, as the verse goes, to cleave to his attributes. As he is merciful, so shall you be merciful. Meaning that we change our attributes, which are the will to receive, and accept the attributes of the Creator, which consist purely of bestowal, in such a way that everything we do will be only to bestow upon our fellow man and benefit them to the best of our ability. By that we come to the purpose of adhesion with him, meaning equivalence of form. And the things that man must do for himself, the minimum needed for him and his family, is not considered a change of form, because necessity is neither praised nor condemned. And that will be discovered at the time of the Messiah. When that lesson is learned, we shall attain complete redemption. So as you can see, this is definitely for a student of Kabbalah who's studying Baal Salam's material. And in the wisdom of Kabbalah, the purpose of life is to achieve the qualities of the Creator. So just like the Creator is bestowing, we should also be bestowing. You could also say we want to balance ourselves with the laws of nature, because nature is actually the Creator. You can call nature God as well, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, nature is a system and its main principle is balance. So humanity needs to balance itself with nature. And in nature, nobody, no animal, no plant, they don't take more than what's needed. They don't take more than what's necessary for their survival. But humanity is always more greedy. We constantly want to take stuff more and more and more and more, trying to fulfill ourselves with everything in the world we possibly can. And we don't understand that we cannot fulfill ourselves with the way we live. So Baal Salam says, even though we can take whatever we want, we can never really be happy and satisfied with this kind of nature. It just doesn't work out. This is why you get a lot of rich people who are depressed, or who are in drug abuse, or who are just not happy with their lives. Because if you have everything, and if you can get everything, then really, what are you getting pleasure from? Because the desire and the pleasure, they cancel each other out. Whenever I get what I want, the desire and the pleasure cancel each other out. So Baal Salam says the only way for humanity to be happy is to feel perfection. And the way to achieve that is to actually have the same attributes as the Creator. So we're created as a desire to receive pleasure for ourselves. But if we change that, and we attain the attributes of the Creator, then we have a chance in terms of having a happier life, because we become free from this desire to receive that keeps making us run after all kinds of silly things. And this is called correcting ourselves, which he calls here complete redemption, And he calls it the time of the Messiah. But actually, well, let's make it a bit 21st century, okay? Messiah means the necessity a person feels to discover the meaning of life. That's what a Messiah is. So we understand we're not expecting anyone out of the skies and the clouds to come down. Messiah is basically a person's salvation. And his salvation depends on how he's going to be happy in life. That's really what salvation is. So let's see how we can balance ourselves out. The two paths to discover perfection: a path of Torah or a path of pain. So Baal Islam says we're either going to, take the path of Torah, which is actually conscious development. So don't let any terms, mislead you in thinking we're going to start learning some religion or not. No. The path of light or the path of pain, the path of conscious development or the path of unconscious development. There are only two paths we can walk on. This technique will bring about a total destruction of the world in a third world war. The survivors will decide not to work for themselves more than is actually necessary and dedicate the remainder of their actions for the good of others. And if all the nations of the world consent that no man should care for himself, but only for others, war shall cease to exist. So if we take the path of suffering or the path of unconscious development, we're going to get ourselves into a mess, just like we've been getting ourselves into numerous messes over the course of our human history. Just like we had the First World War, we had the Second World War, now we can understand that with all the nuclear weapons around, humanity can easily come to a Third World War. It just takes one person to press that button. So these are the two paths that we can take, but either way, we're going to get to perfection. Either way, just like a tree, just like the fruit on a tree has to ripen, just like a child has to grow up, we also as humanity have to grow up. So it's very, very important for us to understand that this human development can take only two forms: conscious development, where we study, where we understand what we need to go through and where we need to get to, and we're consciously working to achieve that, or we're going to get shoved by life through all kinds of unnecessary suffering in order to push ourselves to grow. All right, so the next title is Religious Formation. The religious formation of all the nations should first and foremost obligate its members to bestow upon their fellow man the concept of another person's life coming before one's own, a formation of love thy neighbor as thyself, meaning that one will not benefit from society more than the underprivileged. This is a comprehensive religion for all nations that will operate within the framework of the new society. But otherwise, each nation may pursue its own religion and traditions, and one must not interfere with the other. So, in order to come to balance with nature, we must understand one thing. And that one thing is that all of us need to care for each other. If a part of society is being mistreated, then this will come back to the whole of society. So all of us in the world, in our country, in the world, everybody in the world needs to be taken care of. We need to take care of each other. And if we do that, then society will come to some kind of balance, some kind of reconciliation where everyone can be satisfied. Our failure to do so only creates more problems. So if a part of society is not happy, then that part of society generally causes grief for the remaining part. Other than that, everything else can stay the way it is. So Baal Islam's idea of religion is actually everyone taking care of each other. That should be the main principle. The laws of this equal to all religion are. So he's listing here the principles of what we should be doing, how we should be relating to each other. One will work for others to the best of his ability, and beyond that, if necessary, until there is no more hunger in the world. Although one may be a hard worker, one will not benefit from society more than the underprivileged, so that the standard of living will be equal for all. Although there is a religion, honors must be added that are compatible with the religion. He who bestows more upon society will receive a higher decoration. So saying, listen, all of us need to understand that we can't have people hungry in the world, because if some part of society is hungry, they're going to come back to us and bite us because they need to eat. So there's enough food for everyone in the world. We just don't know how to share it properly. So we need to learn how to share it. That's one thing. And the other thing is, although one may be a hard worker, one will not benefit from society more than the underprivileged, so that the standard of living will be equal for all. And although there is a religion, honors must be added that are compatible with religion. He who bestows more upon society will receive a higher decoration. So people actually who contribute to society, they should actually be recognized. Just like we recognize people's accomplishments in life, we should actually recognize accomplishments of people who are doing the best they can for society. The laws of society will punish anyone who refrains from doing his utmost. Now, punishment is in nature, actually. If we don't go by the laws of nature, we get punished. For example, laws of gravity. Now, I understand there's gravity, and if I go against that and start jumping off a cliff, I'm going to end up dead because there's gravity. So there is punishment in nature. If we don't go by the laws of nature, nature punishes us. So we have to understand what the laws of nature are, because if you think about it, our whole human punishment, even this pandemic, this COVID-19, is pretty much nature's punishment to us for still acting like children, running around, doing all kinds of silly things instead of what we should be doing, which is growing up. So we're consuming and eating up our own planet. And nature is saying, well, we're not having that. That's it. Enough is enough. So nature is telling us to go into our rooms, stay there, and think about what we've been doing, just like we tell our children. So punishment is something that exists in nature, and we can't just disregard it. We can't just say punishment is bad and it shouldn't exist. It needs to exist because it exists in nature. So how this is going to be done, he's not talking about how it's going to be done. He's just saying, this is how it is. Each and everyone must endeavor, according to his religion, to constantly improve the standard of living of the world, so that all those who come in it will take pressure in their lives and enjoy life more and more, will take pleasure in their lives and enjoy life more and more. So all of us actually need to ensure the well-being of everyone. So every child that's born in the world should be taken care of. They shouldn't have to starve. They shouldn't have to go through all kinds of horrible situations. We should all be taking care of everyone. Not everyone must delve in spirituality, but only a chosen few according to the changing needs. There will be a so-called Supreme Court, and all who wish to participate in the spiritual life must first be permitted to do so by this court. Well, in life, not everybody is seeking spirituality. Not everybody seeks to be a scientist in life. Not all of us are seeking to be an Einstein. Not all of us are seeking to be, some professor, someone who knows everything. it's not in human nature to do all these things. Some of us are good at other things. Some of us like to work with our hands because we're like good artists. Some of us are good with maths, so we do things related to that. Some of us are good with science. Some of us are good bakers. And for some people, making that perfect bread is really important. So this is what they get pleasure from. So everybody gets pleasure from other things that they do. And spirituality is also the same. So a person who understands spirituality, meaning the laws of nature, when we're talking about spirituality, we have to stop thinking as if this is some kind of airy-fairy business. Spiritual life means that I understand how laws of nature works and I am in balance with the laws of nature. That's it. So we need not complicate things by thinking, well, what is spirituality and what does it mean to engage in spirituality? To engage in spirituality means to understand how life works, how nature works, and how we need to balance ourselves in nature. That's what spirituality is. And in order for us to feel that, this new level of existence, where he in the first few paragraphs, while Islam said, we need to connect with the Creator. Well, Creator is nature. And we need to connect with him, meaning that we need to live in such a way that he is living or he is existing. And those principles of existence are called laws of nature. So anybody who wants to delve in that can do so. Can do so. Just like in life, we've got exams for things, right? So you go into university, you take an exam, and according to that exam or your exam results, you get into certain departments and you become what you want to become. Not everybody becomes a doctor, not everybody becomes a lawyer, not everybody becomes an engineer, and so on. So, same thing, same thing. Each individual or group who entered a new framework must take an oath of allegiance to observe all that is so because God has so commanded. God, nature, same thing. Basically, anybody who wants to integrate himself to such a society must understand that we need to follow the laws of nature, which means to have a balanced life. We're always seeking balance. And in fact, in the 21st century, you can constantly see people how to balance life and work, right? We've been seeking balance in our life for years. How to balance everything out? Well, there is only one way to balance everything out. I can't balance it individually, really. I need to balance it with society. Why? Because I have needs. I have needs that, that are necessary, like housing, food, family, and so forth. So these necessities need some kind of a balanced approach so that everyone can have those basic needs. So humanity obviously needs to first bring itself into balance with nature, and that's what God's commandments are. Nature's laws equals God's commandments. Now, Baal Islam is writing this, like I said, to a completely different audience. But we're students of Kabbalah with B'nai Baruch, so we understand what he's talking about. But I just want to make sure everything is crystal clear for everyone, just in case other people are listening as well. God's commandment means laws of nature. That's it. Or at least to pledge to teach his children that God has so commanded. So we need to teach ourselves and to our children that we need to respect nature. We need to respect the laws of nature, because if we don't, nature gives us all kinds of natural disasters, because nature wants to balance itself. And as long as humanity is eating up the planet, we're mining the planet for all kinds of stupid things. We're even trying to conquer Mars. God knows what we're going to do there. The only thing that we're going to go and do there is probably rape that planet as well, just like we're raping Earth. So nature says, stop it. And that's like God's commandment. So we've got a pandemic. Pretty soon we're going to have more hunger. Pretty soon we're going to have more and more natural disasters. And as these natural disasters strike more and more, we'll begin to understand that life as we are living it right now cannot carry on like this. We have to change. And the world, nature, call it God, call it whatever you like. There's a divine force above us who will push us, squeeze us, and force us to change the way we live so that we come to balance with nature. And that's what basically he's talking about here. All right. Those who claim to settle for the ideology should be accepted on condition. If they live up to it, they can be fully accepted. Nevertheless, they must promise not to pass on to their sons their path of heresy, but to trust their education in the hands of the state. And if they want neither, they must not be accepted at all, for they will corrupt their friends and the loss will exceed the profit. So everybody in society needs to agree with this. We have to agree that if I live in such a way that harms you, we have to understand that first I'm harming you, and then you necessarily, by trying to get what you need, will begin to harm others as well. Why? Because I have taken more than what I need, and that cost you something. That cost you what you need. So in order to compensate for what you need, now you have to go and take it from others. So society is really interdependent. I can't just go ahead and start taking whatever I want, doing whatever I want in order to achieve whatever I want, because that is completely disregarding society. And if you disregard society, then society will become corrupt. This is what we have in the 21st century. Complete corruption in every country of the world, in the world. So society must be composed of people who agree that they are willing to make changes in life so that we can have a better life. And the best way, the only way actually to make a change in life is education. If we do not educate ourselves to change for the better, because our life in modern society has completely gone nuts, then we won't get anywhere. So society has to agree that we need to be educated, our children need to be educated, we need to have a fresh new look, a fresh new perspective on life, that everyone must be taken care of. Otherwise, those who are not taken care of will become criminals, and they will kill, rape, steal from others. And the only way to prevent that is education. Education means conscious understanding of our human nature and the laws of nature, and the necessity to see that we need to get out of this human nature, which is egoistic, and to live in a balanced way according to the laws of nature. In school, we don't get these things. Nobody educates us. They just give us information. Education and learning information is not the same thing. Education, first and foremost, is teaching me what I am, who I am, what my place in the world is, what society is, how I need to be in society. What does it mean to be a society? What does it mean not to cause harm to society? What does it mean that we're all interdependent in society? What does it mean that if I have a bad day, somebody else will also have a bad day? Or if you have a bad day, I'm going to have a bad day as well. This is education. Understanding our nature, the world, society, and how society needs to be in order for it to be healthy and happy. The next item, there must first be a small organization whose members are willing to work according to their ability and receive according to their needs for religious reasons. Well, religious reasons means spiritual reasons. So this word really is, quite old for us. Spiritual reasons means that we need to have some kind of conscious development, an elevation in our consciousness. We can't keep running around the world like headless chooks, constantly running around. So this can no longer work out for us because it's not working out for us. And a lot of people feel that after this vaccine for COVID-19, that life has now an opportunity to go back to what it used to be. However, that will not happen. Humanity will not go back to how it was living. You will see in front of us, in the next few years, we'll have a real crack in economy. We will see that humanity is changing in its approach to life, in how it's evaluating life. And we'll see many changes in life because of this virus. So this COVID-19 actually did us a good favor. It will bring us to question life. And going back to normal, what is normal anyway? Spending 2 hours in traffic every day, getting stressed, dying of cancer, heart attacks, all kinds of illnesses. Half the society is homeless, crazy. There's a madman in every corner, in every city. It's crazy. There are a lot of people who are homeless, people are hungry. What is normal? What are we going to go back to? What does it mean going back to normal? Our life was not normal. In fact, it was like chaotic. Every morning you get up, go to the office, do the same stuff, come home, try to have a good weekend and do the whole thing again Monday to Friday. And that's if you're not working 7 days a week. And a lot of people work 7 days a week because they can't make ends meet. So what normal are we talking about? Our capitalistic economy, our global society is going through absolute chaos. The disgusting life we had. And the virus put a stop to it. It gave us an opportunity to think about life, to evaluate our life, to see what kind of changes we should be making. How we can come to balance with life. What are we running for anyway? What are we running after? What are we building all kinds of skyscrapers for? So this whole system of human society is going through a deep change, even though society may not realize it. We're going through a lot of inner change. And this spiritual reason is very important because we have an objective here. Life is created for a purpose. And the purpose of life is to attain a higher level of consciousness. So this is what he's calling the needs for religious reasons. Religious reason means that I want to attain a higher level of consciousness. Otherwise, we're not talking about Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all kinds of isms. We're not talking about those. Humanity has a purpose. There's a reason behind creation, and it has to come to a conclusion. They will work diligently as though they were contract workers, if necessary, more than 8 hours a day. In this organization, there will be the complete administration as that estate, so that the administration of that small society suffice for a framework for all the nations of the world. That organization will be like a center point that expands over nations and countries throughout the world, and all who enter that framework will accept the leadership and administration program of the initial organization, so that the whole world will be united in facing the consequences of loss or enjoying the profit. Well, there you go. If there's a problem in one part of the world, everybody suffers. For example, we had a lot of wars in the Middle East. Now all of Europe, the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, all these countries have immigration problems. So once people were living peacefully in their homes, and then war broke out, and now every country is paying a price for it. You see, in a war, there is no winner. There are no winners in wars. Because if one part loses, that loss is paid by everyone in the world. So all of us in life need to understand that we're interdependent, and we need to make sure we connect properly with each other. At the end of the day, what is a border anyway? If you let people live wherever they want, they'll just live peacefully and quietly. And if people help each other out, despite the fact of their religion or ethnicity or whatever, they can live in peace. Because at the end of the day, what do we really all want? We just want to be happy in life. That's what humanity wants. In order for that to be achieved, all of us in the world must have some responsibility towards the well-being of everyone. All contradictions between members of society will be resolved between the relevant parties, and anyone who exploits the weakness or strictness of his fellow man will be ostracized from society. If some exceptions are found in society, the public must be notified of them until they are reformed. If efforts to reform them fail, society should treat them as outcasts so that they cannot corrupt others in the society. So if some people don't want to do it, they should just be thrown out of society. Prisons don't work, so putting people in jail is not really an option. It just doesn't work. But if you turn your back on a person who's not willing to comply to society, then that person receives actually the greatest punishment. No man will claim his needs from society. Specifically appointed people will inquire about the needs of each person and will see to their satisfaction, so that everyone is absorbed solely in bestowal and never needs to contemplate his own needs. The freedom of the individual should be maintained as long as it is not harmful to society. Anyone who wishes to leave and join another society must in no way be detained, even if their leaving is harmful to society. So the society should only be comprised of people who want to be there. You can't pressure people to do things like they did in communism. If a person understands that, this is how we need to live so that everyone in society can be happy and should be happy, then that's how it is. And if you don't want to live like that, that's great too. You can just go and go somewhere else. So a society must organize itself in such a way that everyone does their best for society as much as they can. And they will get what they need from the society. They will contribute to society. If they don't feel like doing it, well, then they should go. No pressure. Now, the next topic, the subheading, is publicity. Let's see. Now, Balsam is just giving us here in this part, in this introduction, the major points, okay, what we need to kind of pay attention to. Because human nature is egoistic, it works in a really weird way. No matter what society I'm in, if I don't integrate in there correctly and properly, my egoistic nature is going to dominate me. So I need to be in such a society where my egoistic nature doesn't have the opportunity to start eating everybody up. And the only way I can stop myself from doing that is by the influence of society. If the society influences me in such a way that instead of being egoistic, I should be altruistic, if society imposes to me, actually just advertises that to me, and everybody shows me examples of altruism and caring for each other rather than self-concern and egoism, then I can actually change easily. because I look at society and I think, wow, everybody's doing that. That's great. So I'll do it as well. Okay. Publicity. There are three foundations to the circulation of the religion. Well, he calls this religion, but you understand what he's talking about here. The way of life. Obviously, we're not talking about any religion here, like, Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, or Hinduism, or whatever. Just need to be very clear-cut. 1, the satisfaction of desires. In every man, there is an unknown spark that demands to unite with God. And when it sometimes comes to life and awakens to know God, or to deny God, which is the same thing, and if there is someone who can satisfy that need, he would agree to anything. In addition, there is the matter of the afterlife and reward in the next world. There is also the matter of the pride of the individual and the pride of the nation. 2, proof that the world exists but for him, especially in the days of the atomic age. 3, publicity, hiring people to spread these words to the public. There is no harder blow to the capitalistic regime than this new formation of society. We should not expect that the capitalistic regime would disappear by itself. Publicity, if one bears in mind that all wrongs are only amendable in the new society, it will not be sufficient for him to devote himself to it. Let's see. If that religion is accepted, let's move forward. The basis of all this explanation is the discovery of both spiritual and material creation, which is no more than the will to receive, regarded as existence from absence. But what that substance receives is extended existence from existence. Thus, we can vividly see that God demands of us, what God demands of us, equivalence of form. So everybody in the world should actually come to equivalence of form with God or with nature or with the upper force or with the light, doesn't matter what you call it. For by nature our body has but the will to receive and none of the will to bestow, which is the opposite to the Creator, which is all bestowal and no reception. So we are all reception and the Creator is all bestowal. So we're completely opposite. And we have to change our nature from complete egoism and self-love to loving others. This is why he says above, and we first read, that the principle of humanity should be caring for each other, taking care of each other. That difference of form causes severance from the Creator. Therefore, we're obliged to bring contentment to our Maker through acts of Torah and mitzvot and bestowal to others in order to receive that form of bestowal and once again cleave to the Creator as before creation. So the purpose of our life is to go back to the sensation that we are living in complete unity with the Creator. This we have to do consciously. Now, animals and plants, they are subconsciously in balance with nature. So they're like a perfect part of nature, but humanity isn't. But what makes us different from them, from plants and animals, is that we can consciously change. And this conscious development, it brings about an understanding of the entire scope of creation. This is why humanity's development is so special, because animals and plants, they don't have to go through this. So they don't live with actual real understanding of anything. They live with instincts. But humanity, by taking the reins of development into its own hands, can actually have conscious development. And this conscious development is what makes it special, because then you can attain the attributes of the Creator. So it becomes something like you built yourself. So imagine building your life. It's the same thing if you build your spiritual life. You're building it out of scratch from nothing. the next title is The Leader of the Generation. People naturally believe a leader who has no private interests and no commitments for himself, who dedicates himself and abandons his privacy in favor of the benefit of the public, because indeed that is how it should be. And if the leader harms another person because of some private interest, he is a liar and a traitor, and as soon as people find out about it, they will trample him to the ground. There are two kinds of private interests, physical and mental. There is not a leader in the world who will not fail the public for mental interests. For example, if one is merciful and because of that he does not rid society of evildoers and does not warn about them, or that he is afraid of vengeance, perhaps even the vengeance of the Creator, and because of that refrains from making the necessary corrections. Thus, because of private interest, he demolishes the public. Even if he rids himself of material interests, he'll still not want to rid himself of idealistic or religious interests, although they are only his own without any bearings on the public. For they discern only the word benefit, for they have nothing, even the most idealistic, that can stand in the way of benefit. So imagine this is how our leaders should be, but can you see any leader in the world that is truly a leader? All leaders seek self-benefit, both material and mental. This is why all governments are corrupt. In every country, there's corruption. They use their position to steal from their own people and abuse their own people. And this is how it is in every country. So there's nothing to talk about leadership in terms of what we have in the world right now. A leader is a person who has dedicated himself to his people and has no personal interest. So do we have leaders in the world? No, we don't have any leaders in the world at all. None whatsoever. All right, let's finish this off then. Good deeds and acts. The mind cannot perceive something that the senses do not first detect. A person does not wish for something because it's good, but is good because he wishes it. The senses do not detect something that is not done first. Thus, action leads to senses, which leads to understanding. For example, the senses cannot take pleasure in bestowal before they actually bestow. And it is impossible to grasp the great importance of bestowal before your senses get a taste of it. By the same token, it is impossible to take pleasure in adhesion before many good deeds that can bring to it are performed, provided they are done in order to please the Creator. That is to take pleasure in the contentment that He gets by your performance of the good deed. Once the pleasure in good deeds has been felt, it is possible to understand the Creator to the extent of the received pleasure. So as you can see, without really feeling the Creator, without feeling what really bestowal is, it's really hard to understand. So first we have to do things to get to that state, then we have to feel it, understand it, then we can actually recognize the pleasure from it and keep doing it. Why? Because it makes us happy. It's a new way of happiness, but this is something humanity can get great pleasure from. We just don't know why bestowal would give us any pleasure. Because if you think about it, it's giving to others, it's not taking. So it's really hard for us to understand because it goes against our nature. So first of all, a person needs to attain that higher level of spirituality, this higher level of attainment, this higher level of consciousness. Then one can see how great that situation, that state is, and can then do afterwards all kinds of bestowal. Why? Because they understand how great it is. So we need to go through this process of understanding what bestowal is, feeling it, sensing it, knowing it. And this can only be done through all kinds of actions in order for us to get there. There are two aims to religion. Not for her name, which is pragmatism. When he gets what he wants, he is satisfied. Two, religious, a mental need to cleave to the Creator, which is called for her name. By action, he can come from not for her name to for her name. So initially, we're all egoists. But if we want to change, we can change our nature from egoism into altruism. That's what he's trying to explain to us here. The aim and the purpose of life. To attain adhesion with the Creator so as to please Him alone, or to purify others so that they may attain adhesion with the Creator. So that means we've got only two purposes in life. To unite with the Creator and to help others unite with the Creator. So we can get out of this ridiculous life cycle that we're living in. Two servitudes in the world. To the Creator or to His creatures. One of them is a must. There's no taste of total freedom, but to those who are servants to the Lord alone and to no other creature in the world. So in other words, we have to come to such a state that we have to serve the Creator and other people. Now, this sounds absolutely crazy. Why should I be serving others when I just want to serve myself? Well, there's a simple reason behind everything. This allows us to change our nature from self-love to bestowal. And when you change your nature, you can actually feel a higher level of consciousness. If you constantly want to receive, like you're doing right now in life, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to happen because this is how life is going anyway. This is why our life is unsuccessful. It's chaotic. It's horrifying. You might be living in the richest country in the world and you know you have thousands of people who are poor, who live on the streets, who have no housing, no food. You're the richest country in the world, but your people, millions of them, are on food coupons, trying to get by. It's crazy. So this higher level of consciousness is necessary for us to come out of this life cycle that we're in. It's not even a life cycle, it's a death cycle. Contact or touch with Him. So contact with the Creator. All right? There's nothing more natural than attaining contact with the Creator. As the verse goes, the whole earth is full of His glory, but one does not know and does not feel it. And the worshipper who is endowed with contact with Him gains nothing but the knowledge. Thus, he becomes more natural, simpler, and poorer, until one can say that before he was endowed, he and the masses too were outside the simple nature. For now he is equal and simple and understands all people and is very much involved with them. And no one is nearer and more natural to the masses than him, and one must love him alone, for they have none closer and more brotherly than him. So basically, in order to attain some kind of exaltedness, a person has to kind of get out of his skin. And the way to get out of his skin is to actually help others. Because if I love other people and I care about them and I do things for their benefit, I actually begin to forget about myself. Now you might think, well, that's crazy. It's actually not crazy. It's quite logical. Because by actually forgetting about myself, I'm actually deleting all my problems. You might think, well, how's that going to happen? Well, simple. If I don't have things, I don't have problems. The more I have, the more problems I have. So humanity living in the state of its necessities, which is not being poor, by the way. You know, necessity in the 21st century is having a home, a car, a computer, a mobile phone, and so on. It doesn't mean you have to live on bread and water. No. In the 21st century, you have to have a normal life. But on top of that normal life, we have to understand that we need to develop to a higher level of consciousness rather than remain in this pathetic consuming society, because we're consuming ourselves. All our sicknesses is simply because humanity is stuck like a rat running in that wheel, never going anywhere. So forget the rat race and focus on changing yourself so you can get out of this chaotic world and actually start connecting with other people. And this connection with other people is actually what's making you richer. So this is what he's trying to tell in this last paragraph. It's not really obvious, but what's happening here is that we're having a simple life where we're just connected with people in a good way. Now imagine you having a day out with your family, with your loved ones or your friends. You're all having a great time. Why? Because you've got good connections. You've got a good connection with each other because you care for each other, you love each other. Now imagine the whole world being like that. Now you might think it's impossible. It's not impossible if we understand that our good life depends on good connections. Because just having a good connection with my family or with my neighbors or my friends and mates is not enough. It's not enough. Having a good connection with everyone is a necessity. This is why a part of society will turn criminal and come to hurt you and bite you because you don't have that right connection with them. So all of us in society need to go through this change so that we can actually start going through this, this grinding stone or whatever you want to call it, this education process, and start making these inner scrutinies and changes. And this can only be for the better. Now imagine getting along well with everyone. Imagine living in a world where you don't have to worry about, everyone trying to trip you over. Sounds good. With the chaotic situation in the world that we're going into, and there will be more, worse states than what we're going through right now, humanity will need to figure out a way to change itself. In the meantime, though, we're going to pause here, stop here. We've finished actually this. So we managed to finish this whole thing in one lesson. We'll carry on with the remaining parts of this article because it has a few parts in there. I think, oops, just bear with me. Yeah. So we have here the solution, the new society, the change of form, 2 paths to discover perfection. So we have a bunch of articles that we can actually go through. So next week, we'll carry on with some more articles of Baal Islam regarding society itself. Okay. And I'll decide what one we'll do next by the time we get to next week, and you'll get a link on the email in any case. All right. In the meantime, have a great evening. All the best. Bye-bye.